Well, good morning and welcome to Tuesday on 10 with Tom. Hope you guys all had a very nice Memorial Day. This Memorial Day was a little unusual for us in that there weren't youth activities to go to and all kind of things that we needed to do. And so we did something a little different yesterday. We invited some of our neighbors together who we've never had for dinner in our house. And we did a big cookout, and there were 14 of us here yesterday, and we just had a wonderful time together, telling stories and laughing, and just a really good time. Deb did a great job of putting that all together, and so that was our Memorial Day, and it was a neat thing for us. Three of the men that were here are all former members of the military, and so we are grateful for their service. And heard a lot of really cool stories yesterday, and so it was just a great day. So I hope you had a good Memorial Day as well. And now we move into the day after Memorial Day, the day before the last day of school, and we are winding it down, getting to the end of another school year. And so today our topic is one that has not been unusual through all this time. Again, as I've been going through a number of different devotionals, seeing a lot of stuff on waiting. And it's kind of interesting because these devotionals are not all about waiting, but it's a subject that comes up even in normal times, the importance of waiting. And the title of the one that I was reading for this morning was this: Waiting Can Bring Unexpected Blessings. And I thought it was neat. It was a gal telling about how the things that she was really looking for after graduation weren't coming in the right order, but she kept devoting herself to going for the best thing at the best time. She often thought that she would get the right job right out of college, she would find the right person in college to marry, she'd have the right relationship, everything would go well, and it didn't quite work out that way. So it took a long time for her to find what she called her happily ever after. But during that time of waiting, she didn't sit idle. She kept pursuing more education. She got her bachelor's degree initially, then went and got a master's degree, and then went and got a doctorate. Made a lot of friends throughout the years that helped her as she worked toward her career. And then 10 years later, she found the person that would be the love of her life. And it was neat. The verse that she shared is one that you hear a lot at graduation time, and we've mentioned it before, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And if you've known me for a long time, you know that I don't normally like that verse. And people are like, why? It's such a good verse. Well, I think a lot of people have the mistaken thought in their head that God just wants us to have all good stuff all the time, and God's plans for us are to prosper and to do great, and so we're not going to have any trouble. It's like everything's going to go our way. And that's not the truth. And we talked about this a few weeks ago, that in its context, that verse is talking about a long period of struggle, that eventually, yes, they would get where they needed to go, but that it was not going to be easy. And so in this time that we're living in right now, this actually seems like a pretty appropriate verse, because God does have good plans for us. But he also understands that we're going to struggle on the way to get there. And so as I'm reading through this, I'm seeing that the author of the devotional gave a list of things to do to try and live out making the best of things until God has you where he wants you to be. And this is the first one that he wrote down. And I thought this was so really neat. Make a list of the qualities you want in a future spouse. Now, a lot of times we get this image of who the Mr. Right or Miss Right's going to be, the person that's going to change our lives, and we set up this kind of fantasy thing in our head. Or we rush from relationship to relationship because we're so desperate to find the right person, and sometimes we settle for the wrong person instead of waiting for the right one. And so it's important before we jump into relationships to know what it is that we're looking for. What are the kinds of people and what are their qualities that we're going to be attracted to for the long haul? For me, and it took me a long time to get married. I was in my mid-30s, but I always knew that the person who I would marry would have to be a teacher. And people used to say, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you have to marry a teacher? And I always said, because it needs to be somebody that understands why I like to work with kids. Because teachers certainly love to work with kids. They get it. And so I knew it was going to have to be somebody like that got it, because otherwise, if we didn't both like kids, then there was always going to be conflict over spending too much time with kids instead of with each other. And honestly, in our relationship, we've had to make a lot of compromises, and where kids came first. Very few times in our marriage have we been together on our anniversary. Very few times have we been together on my wife's birthday. And it takes a special person to put up with that. And so Deb has been amazing as far as that goes. And so I knew that ahead. I also found out later on that Deb began praying for her future spouse when she was a teenager. And she prayed for me, even though she didn't know me, that I would keep myself pure for her, and that when the time was right, that we would find each other, and that we would know that we were the ones for each other, and that God would lead us into that relationship together. And God honored that long, patient prayer. And so making a list of the qualities you want in a future spouse, that's important. Another thing that she mentions here is to pray regularly for God's direction for your life. God, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do today? What do you want me to prepare for tomorrow? What do you want me to prepare for down the line? Pray that God's going to direct you where He wants you. It's not always where we want to go, but God has a way of working the things that we like into the direction that He's going to take us. If you're in a relationship wait mode, take up a hobby that you've always wanted to pursue, such as ceramics, guitar lessons, just something you always thought would be fun. While you're waiting on the right job and the right person in a relationship, and you've given that over to God, pick up something else that you can learn to do and learn to enjoy it. And so build up a new and fresh habit. Another thing that she writes is that waiting can produce stress. And stress can be taxing on our body. And so she wrote, make healthy diet choices and exercise several times a week. Get into good physical habits. It's a great time to do that when you've got a little bit of free time on your hands. And then if you're waiting on a job prospect, or you're getting ready to apply to a school, you started to narrow down where you want to go to college, stay current in the literature of the field that you want to study. Stay current on what's happening at the school that you'd like to attend. Learn as much about it as possible. Become well-researched in it. And that way, a future counselor or the person that's going to be reading your application, or the person who's going to be interviewing you for a job, is going to see how serious you are about your choices, and it can give you a leg up of where you want to go. So I love this idea of living this thing of waiting out in a productive manner. And so I hope that we're doing that as we continue to wait. Now, you've waited long enough for today's Family Feud question, so let me pass that on to you. Our question for today is, name a reason someone might tell you to close your eyes. There are 5 answers on the board today, so name a reason someone might tell you to close your eyes. Now, a couple other things with waiting. I mentioned that today our staff is getting together, our ministry team, to talk about some of the next steps, and we'll be continuing that discussion tomorrow. We'll be keeping you up to date. I know you guys have been waiting a long time, so have we. There may be some more waiting left, but we're starting to move in a right direction, and so pray for us as we go through that, and we'll keep posting what's happening from day to day. And don't forget our youth leadership team meeting coming up on Sunday, June the 7th. We've got Bible study this Sunday at the Village Church at 9 and 11, and so we hope to see you guys there. If you're comfortable with that, if not, feel free to continue to worship with us online. Be a part of our Zoom meeting Sunday night at 5 o'clock, and we'll just continue doing what we need to do to stay together and to stay connected to Christ until we get through this. So have a wonderful Tuesday, and we will talk to you again tomorrow on 10 with Tom.